Soviet intelligence, especially during the Cold War, often appeared to the world as an invulnerable giant, capable of penetrating the most closely guarded secrets of Western states. Its agents seemed to be invisible masters of disguise, dissolving into foreign cultures like drops of water in the ocean. Their missions, shrouded in secrecy, were supposed to bring Moscow valuable information. However, beneath this majestic and formidable exterior lay vulnerabilities, and sometimes it was technological breakthroughs, or, more often, the banal human factor that became the very stone that set off an avalanche of failures, destroying the most ingenious plans. Imagine the scene. On one side of the globe, in the offices of the NKVD and GRU, cryptographers meticulously encode messages, confident in the impenetrability of their algorithms. These messages, filled with valuable information about nuclear developments, political plans, and military secrets, are sent across the ocean to agents working in the heart of the United States. On the other side, in the United States, a large-scale and, for the time being, completely secret operation, codenamed Venona, is unfolding quietly but methodically. From 1943, in the midst of World War II, until 1980, American counterintelligence, mainly the NSA, was engaged in intercepting and decrypting these Soviet radiograms. It was painstaking work, comparable to trying to assemble a mosaic from millions of scattered fragments, where each piece is a separate symbol, number, or letter. American specialists worked their way through seemingly impenetrable codes step by step, using both the latest mathematical methods of the time and, at times, simply luck and persistence. The results were staggering. The Venona project made it possible to decrypt thousands of messages. These decrypts became a real goldmine for American counterintelligence, revealing the identities of more than 200 Soviet agents and informants operating in the United States. Among them were not just ordinary spies, but high-ranking officials, influential scientists working on strategically important projects, and even employees of defense enterprises. It was not just the discovery of individual moles, but the uncovering of an entire network spread across the country like an invisible web. For a long time, the American authorities could not use this information openly. Imagine an investigator who knows exactly who the criminal is, but cannot present evidence so as not to reveal his source of information. That was exactly the case. Revealing the very fact of the decryption would mean that Soviet intelligence would immediately change its codes, and all the years of work would be wasted. Therefore, the information from Venona was used with extreme caution, like an invisible thread leading the FBI to potential spies. This allowed many agents to continue their activities, but their identities were already known to counterintelligence, which significantly complicated their work and gradually led to failures. As was later noted in declassified documents, decryption revealed the extent of infiltration, and this spelled doom for many Soviet operations. The full details of Project Venona were only declassified in the 1990s, decades after the work was completed, allowing historians and the general public to truly appreciate the scale of this technological breakthrough and its impact on the course of the Cold War. The case of Rudolph Abel. Sometimes, even the most sophisticated technical means are powerless in the face of the human factor. This is exactly what happened in the story of Soviet intelligence colonel Rudolph Abel, whose real name was William Fisher. He was one of those whom the intelligence world calls illegals, agents living under deep cover, without diplomatic immunity, fully integrated into a foreign country and culture. Fisher, a talented artist and photographer, masterfully played the role of an ordinary American citizen for many years, leading an outwardly unremarkable life in New York. His mission was extremely important: to create and coordinate a spy network and gather valuable information about the United States' nuclear and military programs. His legend seemed flawless, and his methods were honed to perfection. He was the embodiment of coolness and professionalism. However, as is often the case in the world of espionage, even the strongest chain can break in the most unexpected place. In 1957, Abel's mission was interrupted, not because of the technological superiority of the enemy, but because of betrayal. Abel's radio operator, a certain Reino Haikonen, was recalled to Moscow due to unreliability. He probably felt cornered, fearing punishment for his mistakes or lack of discipline. And instead of returning to his homeland, he made a fateful decision to surrender to the American authorities. Once in the hands of the FBI, Heikkinen told them everything he knew about Abel's activities, revealing his safe house and methods of communication. This was a direct hit to the heart of a carefully constructed network. On 21 June 1957, Rudolph Abel was arrested in New York. It came as a shock to him, but even in the face of imminent failure, he maintained incredible composure. During interrogations, Abel refused to cooperate with the American Special Services, revealing not a single name or detail of his operations. His steadfastness impressed even his opponents. For his espionage activities, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. But Abel's story did not end there. His name became known to the whole world in 1962, when he was exchanged for Francis Gary Powers, the pilot of a U-2 American reconnaissance aircraft shot down over the Soviet Union. The exchange took place on the Gleinica Bridge in Berlin, becoming one of the most famous and dramatic moments in the history of the Cold War, entering into legend and becoming the subject of many books and films. This event vividly demonstrated how internal disagreements, personal weaknesses, or fears of one person can destroy even the most carefully planned and years-in-the-making operations, highlighting the fragility of trust in a world where every step could be the last. The defection of Igor Gouzenko, when one person changes everything. The year was 1945. World War II had just ended, but the world was already feeling the breath of a new, Cold War that was about to break out. At that time, in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, a seemingly ordinary cryptographer of the Soviet embassy was working, 26-year-old Igor Gouzenko. For him, as for many other diplomatic mission employees, life away from home had its peculiarities, but no one could have imagined the role he would play in the history of world espionage. Gouzenko was not just a clerk, he had access to top-secret telegrams and codes that revealed the true extent of Soviet intelligence activities in the West. He saw how actively Moscow was seeking to obtain the secrets of the atomic bomb, how networks of agents were being woven to infiltrate scientific centers and government institutions in North America. Perhaps this knowledge, or personal disappointment in the system, or fear for his future, the exact reason for his decision remains a subject of debate among historians, pushed him to take a desperate step. On 5 September 1945, Igor Gouzenko defected. He did not simply leave the embassy, he took with him something far more valuable than his personal belongings, more than 100 secret documents. These papers shed light on the dark corners of Soviet espionage. Overcoming his fear and resistance, Gouzenko managed to hand these documents over to the Canadian authorities. It was an act of incredible betrayal that changed his life forever and became the first loud chord of the Cold War. The information provided by Gouzenko proved to be explosive. It not only confirmed the existence of an extensive Soviet spy network, but also revealed its structure, the names of its agents, and their tasks. Although the defection took place in Canada, its consequences were not limited to that country. Gouzenko's documents showed that the network was not only active in Canada, but had also actively infiltrated the United States. Particular attention was paid to the atomic project, which was the main target of Soviet intelligence at the time. Western intelligence agencies, which until then may have underestimated the scale of the threat, suddenly saw the full picture. This case came as a shock to the Western world and was one of the first major events that marked the beginning of the Cold War. The governments of Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom were forced to review their approaches to counterintelligence. If, until then, they had perhaps treated the threat of espionage with a degree of naivety, it was now clear that the enemy was acting on a large scale and aggressively. Arrests, investigations, and security protocol reviews began. Gouzenko's defection led to increased pressure on Soviet agents across North America, and, as a result, to a series of subsequent failures in the Soviet intelligence network. It showed how one person, being in the right place at the right time, could change the course of espionage history, like a small pebble falling from a mountain, causing a powerful avalanche. The failures of Soviet intelligence in the United States show that success depended on a variety of factors: technology, human weaknesses, and the effectiveness of counterintelligence.